Okay, so after you watch this Arsenal versus Tottenham preview, please make sure you check out the Federico Makeda interview with myself, Rio, and Steve.
This guy was mad finisher, like clinical finisher, score all type of goals, tap-ins, bang it from inside, anywhere in the box, dangerous around the box. And you knew he could finish. And the manager, you'd hear the manager say, and you saw the manager's quotes at times, this guy's the best finisher at the club.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to this week's episode of The Five Insider with my guy, Mr. David Ornstein. How you doing? You okay?
I'm good. It's good to be back and let's do this.
Listen, man, this is actually the first time that you're in the studio, right? Look, we've got your picture in here. Everything's ready. You know, really glad that you came down. What do you reckon of the design?
The design's good. I don't know about the person in it. A bit of a face for radio, but
come on.
We'll let it go.
Listen, thank you very much. And after an interesting international period, and we will be talking a lot about the international period when we're talking about United versus City coming up, or City versus United, especially with the Harry Maguire video.
Absolutely.
But that video will be coming out tomorrow, right? But for now, we're talking about the North London derby, Arsenal versus Tottenham. Now, listen, very interesting fixture. Arsenal, top of the league, as you know. But Tottenham, not playing at their best, probably 7 out of 10. But for a team that hasn't been playing so well, they look very scary.
They do, because they're clinical this season. They've also got strength in depth, which is something that they've not had in recent years. So if Son is slightly out of form early season, you've got Richarlison stepping up to the plate. If one of them's out of form, then you've got Kulusevski stepping up to the plate. And you're seeing that in other positions as well. That's testament to their recruitment over the summer. You haven't seen Tottenham get 5-6 players in as early as they did this summer at any time in recent memory.
Good players as well.
Good players, good signings. They might not have all been the first choice that Antonio Conte or Tottenham wanted, but that's the same in every club and situation. You work through your list of targets. You make the best of situations. In some cases, you do get the top name. In others, you don't. But what they've built for Antonio Conte is a squad that is competitive. And they're going to need that depth because they've got the Premier League, they've got the Champions League, they're going to have the domestic cup competitions. It's a disjointed season with the World Cup in the middle. Who knows? They might recruit again like many clubs in January, or try and have a few ins and outs because there'll be players who aren't playing who might want to move on as well. But as we sit here now, Tottenham are looking strong, and that's especially because Son is back in form. And when he clicks, Tottenham tend more often than not to win. So they seem to have found their flow from their perspective just at the right time ahead of this derby, which Arsenal have got a good record at home against Spurs in recent times. Spurs have a good record at home against Arsenal in recent times. So I can't wait for this one. It's going to be epic.
Would you think it's fair to say that this is probably the best Spurs team that have ever faced Arsenal, would you say? As a squad, maybe, or team? There's a difference, because I think, obviously, Pochettino's side, they were the best team, in my opinion. But when I'm looking at the squad, I think this is Tottenham's best squad that I've ever seen.
So I've been to and watched so many North London derbies over the years, and there are often players individually who can win matches for Spurs, certainly since they sort of broke the Arsenal dominance, and that was mainly Harry Kane. And there was the year when the likes of Lennon and Jenas and David Bentley shone at the Emirates Stadium. Dele Alli's had his moments against Arsenal, Son too, but never have they had real threat from all areas. You mentioned the Pochettino team that got to the Champions League final. They all clicked at the same time, especially away to Ajax with Lucas Moura. But even that match, Ajax could have put them to the sword before that late history was made in incredible fashion. But now when you look across the Spurs side, you've got Kane, you've got Son, you've got Richarlison, you've got Kulusevski, you've got Bentancur, you've got Højbjerg, who does a bit of an unsung job in there. You've got Bissouma, if he's in favour with Conte, because it seems that he's the one who's been singled out by Conte for needing improvement. I don't know exactly what he said. There's some strength in defence now. The wing backs are operating quite impressively. And so I think in terms of a credible team with options from the bench coming to the Emirates, they're probably stronger than at any time in recent years, and Arsenal will need to rise to that challenge.
I would say so. I mean, but at the same time, you had Gabriel, our centre-back, Martinelli and Gabriel Jesus, who did not manage to go to the Brazilian team.
Yeah.
I think with Gabriel Jesus, it's more the fact that he is going to the World Cup, so he wasn't needed to be taken here. But do you think there's going to be a little bit of a threat? Obviously, we saw the horrible stuff happen to Richarlison with the bananas being thrown, but taking away that horrible situation, he's banging in goals.
Yeah, he's on form.
He's on form.
Yeah.
So when it comes to, to our man, I say my man at Arsenal, don't you think that's going to light up a little fire in his belly, potentially say, you know what? I've got to be careful here. For the next 6 weeks, I've got to show my stuff. I didn't really play that well against Man United. Yeah, I was a bit of a threat, but this is the big game that everyone's talking about. That Gabriel Jesus' performance could literally be the make or break for Arsenal this Saturday.
First things first, I don't think you want to be left out of an international setup that's the last camp before the World Cup.
Yeah.
So Jesus may be confident of his place. I don't think it's guaranteed, but clearly he's one of the game's informed strikers, and you would expect him to go. I just don't know about the starting role, of course. But with Gabriel Martinelli, with Gabriel at the back, it's all the Gabriels, isn't it? Arsenal need a few more. They won't want to be complacent, because you can be top of the Premier League, but so is Aaron Ramsdale, and he didn't get a minute for England. Nick Pope of Newcastle got both appearances. So they're going to be on their toes. They see Richarlison on form for club and country. And it's a big stage in front of the world's eyes this Saturday lunchtime UK time that they'll want to prove a point for their team first and foremost, but also for their national aspirations going into the Qatar tournament. The benefit they have is that they're on great form. Gabriel Jesus has been tearing it up for Arsenal so far this season. I think it's one of the signings of the summer. I said it at the time. I think he's going to be a star for the Premier League this season and beyond. And Arsenal have got a remarkable deal there, in my opinion. They didn't even have Champions League football to offer him, and he was at one of the most competitive sides in world football. Gabriel Martinelli is a prodigious talent, and maybe he hasn't quite taken the wider public acclaim. He had quite a bad injury. He is growing up at a club where they have had Saka and Smith Rowe, the two homegrown talents who are always going to attract a lot of attention. But this guy's an athlete. He's a goal scorer. He's intelligent. He's a great teammate, from what we hear.
I think, sorry to interrupt you, but I think his relationship with Gabriel Jesus is what has changed him. It's almost like there's a little competition going. It reminds me of Liverpool when they had Luis Suarez, Daniel Sturridge and Raheem Sterling. It's like they were all bouncing off each other, competing, teammates, but they all wanted to do well. And I think his arrival, Gabriel Jesus' arrival, has actually changed, Martinelli's style of play. It's changed his hunger and his thirst when it comes on a pitch. I mean, there's some parts where he probably wouldn't chase as much, but now he chases, and he's got end product as well. So no, for me, I'm pleased.
Football life is all about timings, partnerships. Sometimes a bit of luck as well. And so Gabriel Jesus coming to Arsenal at a time where Gabriel Martinelli was struggling for minutes to an extent. There were quite a few occasions when Arsenal supporters were questioning why Mikel Arteta wasn't using Martinelli more. They saw that great moment for Arsenal away to Chelsea when Kante slipped and Gabriel Martinelli ran the length of the pitch to score. But he was in and out of the side. Smith Rowe was taking precedence, I think, at a point. You had Saka, of course, who's a star in his own right. But Unfortunately for Arsenal and Smith Rowe, he suffered from injury problems. Gabriel Martinelli comes to the fore. Gabriel Jesus comes to the club. Martinelli, I think, did a lot of work physically. You can see he's a very robust player now. He clearly took on board a lot of feedback from Arteta, who often, with Gabriel Martinelli playing to the left, will have Arteta screaming at him from the touchline for at least one half of the match. And so it's that sort of timely blend, and then, as you say, if they get anywhere near what that Liverpool team were like, that was a real triumvirate. It was a thrilling prospect, and that is going to be key for Arsenal this season. You can already sense it, but I just, you've got to remember that fitness plays such a huge part. We talked 1 minute about them being title contenders, and all it takes is one or injury or a loss of form, and things can change. But as things stand, is probably the most exciting Arsenal have looked from an attacking perspective in a long time. It's many years since you saw players at Arsenal weighing in with goals from different areas of the front line. When there was a Pires or a Lundberg or a Wiltord, and then two strikers maybe getting in the goals. Arsenal will want that from Jesus, from Nketiah, from Martinelli, from Saka.
From Odegaard as well.
From Odegaard, who is capable of scoring more and would expect himself to score more. And that little gem, or what looks like becoming a bit of a gem, in Fabio Vieira as well, because what he did at Brentford was perhaps a warning sign to the Premier League.
Exactly.
He announced himself. And I think what happened at Brentford after the adversity of Old Trafford will give Arsenal the belief coming into this match, but they need to deliver on the big stage against a big team like Tottenham. They didn't do it at Old Trafford, even though their performance was of a high level. They didn't get the result. When Tottenham came to Arsenal last season, it was the first North London derby at the Emirates in front of a crowd after the COVID situation affected match-going fans, and Arteta did deliver on that occasion, and he really needs to do so again now. And if he does, I think there will be a lot more belief in Arsenal's ability to be a genuinely competitive force in that top four race this season.
You mentioned the Manchester United game and, a good performance. However, there were a couple players that did get singled out for, mistakes. Saliba. He didn't have such a great international period. Obviously, France losing to Denmark, he was taken off at half-time. Now, I don't know if that was a tactical decision, an injury decision. I'll be honest with you, I haven't seen properly. However, it's a big game for him, because for me, we all know what I think of him, right? But I reckon he's really changed Arsenal's style of play. He builds it up from the back. I don't think Gabriel's anywhere near as good as him on the ball. He starts up attacks well. There's no panic in him. Key player, right? And are we? My issue is, are Arsenal going to tie him up to a long-term contract? Yes or no? Because I'm a bit confused what's going on. He's only got like 2 years left. Like, correct me if I'm wrong, but they should be looking at that right now.
Yeah, but it takes two to tango, and so whether or not Arsenal want to tie Saliba down to a new deal, Saliba's got to want it as well. And this is a boy who came into Arsenal in 2019 and went straight back on loan to St Etienne. Then he went on loan to Nice. Then he went on loan to Marseille. And I'm sure he would have felt that he was ready to play, or at least get the opportunity to play in pre-season friendlies. I think there was maybe one at MK Dons where he got a run out, but he didn't have much more than training sessions. And you've got to place trust in the judgment of the coaches who work with him on a daily basis. And clearly Mikel Arteta and his closest staff felt that the options that they had at the club, in their opinion, were more suitable for the here and now. That upset a lot of Arsenal fans. But they needed to look at whether Saliba would have been getting the game time ahead of the first choice. Murray mainly came in when there were injuries, whereas Saliba's loan spells now appear to be very shrewd, because he's come into the team, and it's all well and good saying, why didn't we have him in before? But he might not. Again, You've come to know that I'm a bit of a fence sitter.
Yeah, I don't agree.
And
Because even if you look at him last season in the French league, I'm not going to pretend as if I watch every Ligue 1 game. But when it comes to some of your players, you watch a little bit closely, right?
Yeah.
And the guy got Young Player of the Year for a reason. He broke into the French team for a reason.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable to see some of the players that we had. And if you look at his performances this season, it's not like it's just gone from 0 to 100. He's been playing at that level for a while.
But if you looked at him when he was playing for Nice in the season before, there were mistakes.
Yeah.
And he was able to make them, and he was able to come back and learn from them in a way that you might not have in the Premier League. You might have been...
Oh no, you can, because if you got all those mistakes that Xhaka's made over the years, and Gabriel's mistakes and flipping Tavares' mistakes, then I'm sorry, I have to disagree.
No, I appreciate that, and it is subjective. It's a game of opinions, but what we can say is that from the first time I saw Arsenal in the flesh, I think in this preseason was Sevilla in the Emirates Cup. And he was colossal. He was just his stature. It was like Van Dijk-esque. I'm not comparing
or
him
a young Rio Ferdinand
to Van Dijk, or we'll definitely put him in the Rio Ferdinand bracket. And you could see the way he brought the ball out from the back, the way he defended, the aggression, the height, the physicality, the vision to play passes. That he seemed to have it all. He's had some not so good moments already this season in terms of there was an own goal in there. He may have been deemed at fault for a couple of other things, but that's fine. That's natural. And the biggest thing this season is that the Arsenal fans have responded to any kind of mistake by getting behind their players, notably him, and he's become a bit of a cult hero with his song. I'm getting away from your question, which is about the contract.
No, you carry on with the praise for Saliba. You carry on with that. Love it.
The biggest praise and accolade is that he's made that position his own now.
Yes.
And he's an automatic pick already in terms of the fact that he wasn't being used at all in those prior seasons.
Is he staying with us? Is he getting a contract extension? That's what I want.
So I think the will be there for Arsenal to give him a new deal. Why wouldn't there be? But I don't think he will be in a rush to come to the negotiating table so soon after he wasn't part of the plans. We were being told that he's part of the future of Arsenal in their mind, but he wasn't part of the immediate plans. So you don't just click your fingers and say, now we're playing you, come on, let's strike a deal. He's said to be wanted, and I'm sure he's admired by some of the biggest clubs in world football. When you read speculation around him, there are so many suitors for William Saliba.
What are you hearing? From who?
The situation, as I understand, is that he's not in a rush to come and sit down. He's focusing on his football. What does he need to rush for? Let's see how things go, and let's see if this is going to be a consistent run in the team, because we're still relatively early into the season. We're soon going to be stopping for the World Cup when many contract negotiations at many clubs will take place. Then we'll get into the second half of the season. The power is all in Saliba's hands in this situation. And one thing I would add is that the priority for Arsenal in terms of contracts has been Bukayo Saka. There are others who they're going to be thinking about as well, like Gabriel Martinelli. So William Saliba will of course come into that mix, but in the scale of priorities, his sort of trajectory is relatively new compared to some of the other players they need to try and tie down. I think they will definitely try and tie him down, but I don't think it's going to be imminent, and it's going to be a very important negotiation, because he and his representatives will want assurances that what we're seeing so far this season is what we're going to be seeing in the future, and bless you, and not what we've seen in the past is going to come back once he signs a new contract.
David, I have to be honest with you, my heart is pounding. Like, we need the guys upstairs. I need them to do a job for me. I really do, and the rest of the Arsenal fans out there. But Saliba's biggest test has to be Harry Kane when it comes to strikers this season. We haven't played City, we haven't played Liverpool. It has to be Harry Kane. Yeah,
there's a lot of euphoria in the Arsenal fan base about Saliba and other players too, and you're top of the league, so it's right to be excited. But Saliba in some of his tests, we mentioned the own goal before, which was unfortunate, but then there was a bit of a mistake that led to Antony's goal at Old Trafford, and that was against big opposition. So now he comes into Kane, and Kane has it within him to beat the best defenders in world football. And so it's going to be intriguing to see how Saliba does. No doubt that if it doesn't go so well, there will be questions from sections of the media, from the fan base, from other clubs might see it as a potential weakness that they can play on in the games to come. Equally, the Arsenal fans again will no doubt get behind him if it doesn't go so well. Saliba's got everything in his locker to cope with Kane. Kane has everything in his locker to beat him. So I think this is probably the best match you've seen in a long time of Arsenal centre-half versus Tottenham striker. I think in recent years, Kane has been head and shoulders above those that he's gone up against, and that's shown in especially in the home matches. Arsenal fans took great pleasure from sort of insinuating that they had kept him quiet and in certain players' pockets in the home matches. But I do feel, Kane at the age and stage he's at, there's even a bit of uncertainty around his future. Is he going to finally get that move? He's under contract until 2024. Is he going to sign a new contract?
But where would he go?
Either way, whatever he does, he's got a bit of a point to prove. He'll want to do that against Arsenal. Saliba will want to counteract that. It's going to be a battle royale. But where would he go? Well, you've seen the links to Bayern Munich, but you speak to some people around the game and they say they're convinced that Harry Kane is so settled in this country that they don't see him playing outside. So whether it's, Manchester United have always been linked with him, Manchester City tried to sign him, Chelsea were even linked with him previously, or does he sign a new contract at Tottenham? I think if he signs a new contract at Tottenham, it's going to be him who comes forward. Tottenham are always going to offer him a new deal. If it's going to have to be he who initiates it. And that makes, again, that World Cup period or post-England's exit, whenever that may be, and the summer of 2023, pivotal. Does Tottenham want to go to that point? Does Kane want to go to that point with only 12 months to go? That, of course, once again, is going to become one of the biggest narratives. And for the first time in quite a long time, he stayed fit. We've seen reports.
Normally the start of the season, it's always something, isn't it? Either he's unhappy because he wanted to go City, or previous years he's not fit.
Or he doesn't score in August when he is fit. This time he scored in August. Exactly. He's been fit. There's been reports about the people he's worked with outside to maintain his fitness, sort of specialists in certain areas. And therefore, at 29 now, Kane would like to think that this is the peak of his career. It'd be really hard to emulate some of his goal-scoring records from years gone by, but his pedigree is proven. And whether it's going to be Tottenham or another club that benefits from him, I think from an England perspective, if we breach the North London divide for 1 minute, it would be good to see Kane continuing to impress, and first and foremost at the World Cup, because England's hopes depend on him.
Yeah, for the World Cup, mate, not in the Premier League. Thank you very much, Mr. David Ornstein. Listen, it's been a pleasure having you in the studio. I know we can't do it like this every week, but the more we can, we'll try as much as possible, We're
going to go out and about as well.
Exactly. We're going to be, filming in different places. Please let us know the different topics you want us to ask Mr. David Ornstein. I've said that this week we're going to be collating the questions that you guys have. So throw the questions in there. We're going to start asking Mr. David Ornstein next week.
No pressure.
Yeah, we're going to start asking you to answer questions from the fans. Besides that, we're going to carry on with the Five Insider, myself, Joel Bayer, Mr. David Ornstein inside the studio, and we will be back for the Man City versus Man United derby preview soon. Peace.
Who for you was the best players that you played with at United? Who surprised you the most?
There were many, Rio. There were many. Okay, Ronaldo for me was from a different planet. Ronaldo was something crazy